Hello, beautiful souls. Hello, this is Maya Joy. Welcome to the Maya's Dream channel. And sincerely, thank you for all of you who are having the courage to listen to this video today. It means so much to me that you all are here. And I know some of you may have seen this title and thought that this is a surprising video coming from me. In today's video, what I really want to accomplish is to really compassionately present to all of you some ways that the twin flame label could potentially be harmful, and also present to you a couple questions to ask yourself to know whether you personally could be susceptible to the negative effects of the twin flame label. And today's video is the result of months and months of reflection that I have gone through, and I just feel like today's the new moon in Libra and it's time to share a balanced perspective for everyone. In order to provide a balanced perspective, I want to first state that there are many potential positive effects of the twin flame label and really like twin flame teachings in general. And as all of you probably know, or many of you know, I myself have grown spiritually tremendously as a result of the twin flame community. It really marked kind of the beginning of my own spiritual awakening and my own understanding of love. So when we discover the twin flame label, we often discover twin flame teachings. And these teachings can help us to begin to attune to a higher frequency, and they can help us learn like many things that are critical to our soul's development and evolution. I mean, I think in my case, like the twin flame journey taught me so much about compassion. I mean, it's really like the ultimate compassion when you see someone else as an aspect of yourself and you start to see, you know, their pain and their wounds and everything, and you really feel for them knowing that in some way that they're a part of you. So I think the twin flame journey can teach us tremendous compassion. It can teach us unconditional love. We can learn about, you know, oneness, and certainly like at the highest level, right? We really are one, and we kind of all are a part of one another. The twin flame journey can teach us forgiveness for ourselves and for others. I think for many people, the twin flame journey can give us an awareness of our gifts. It's like suddenly this whole door is sort of open to these mystical planes and energies, and we can start to realize, oh my gosh, I'm so sensitive to these energies, and we can kind of just discover the world of spirit in the most amazing ways. I think one of the other really amazing things that can happen, you know, as a result of the twin flame label and twin flame teachings is it can really give us a sense of mission, right? Like where suddenly we feel like our soul is awakened and it's like, whoa, you know, I or we are here for a larger purpose, and it can really inspire us to share, you know, some special gifts with the world. And of course, the twin flame journey, it can also catalyze our spiritual awakening. And yes, like it's like suddenly, you know, we meet this person or something and our soul is now here, you know, and in the driver's seat. And those are just a few of the amazing things that can happen when we engage in the twin flame concept and label. And as some of you will know, in the past, I focused on sharing about many of these things, many of the positive things that can happen when we begin to align with the twin flame teachings. Some of you who are very astute and perceptive may also have realized that over the past 6 months or in 2020, I have actually slowly removed almost all, if not all, of my twin flame videos from this channel. And I'm still doing psychic work, and I work with people on a variety of different topics. But what has happened is that, you know, during this year of 2020, and I think all of us have kind of had a space to reflect on matters during the year of 2020. I've come to understand that despite like so much positive attentions for my twin flame videos, I also discovered that there is the potential of the teachings I had put out earlier in my journey to cause harm to certain individuals. Now, I do want to say, I understand that many people, including some of you listening today, may have been helped by my twin flame videos. However, after speaking so positively for so long about the twin flame journey, I feel that to offer a balanced perspective to everyone, it is also now time for me to talk about the reality of the situation, which is that at times, the twin flame label could cause harm to another and potentially could be very harmful in certain situations. So at this point, you might be asking, Maya, like, how can the twin flame teachings potentially cause harm? Now, many of you who are very reflective have probably been parts of different twin flame circles or communities or known people who seem to have been harmed by their involvement with twin flame ideology, or at least it may seem that way. So here's one way that this could happen. Big picture, we meet a person and that person, we feel something tremendous with that person and that person awakens our soul, right? And so then we label that person our twin flame, okay? This is where I think the beginning for harm can occur. So once we label someone our twin flame, it then becomes possible. Now, this may not happen in every case, but it then becomes possible that we can use the twin flame teachings, and I'm going to describe how this can happen below, but we can use the twin flame teachings to justify almost anything that happens in the relationship with that person who we have called our twin flame. Big picture, that's how this can cause harm. Now, if the relationship with that person that we have labeled our twin flame, if that relationship is healthy, then it's really not an issue. Those twin flame principles and signs and symptoms and all of that can be experienced really positively. If, however, the relationship with that person who we have labeled our twin flame is toxic or unhealthy in some way, which it very often is, then we actually can end up explaining away behaviors and patterns of relating that may be harmful to one or both of the people who are involved in that relationship. And that can be true whether or not that person really is a soul connection of ours. All right. So maybe some of you are thinking, I don't really know if that's really happening, or I kind of want to hear more. If that's the case, keep listening, because I'm about to share 5 ways that I often see the twin flame label potentially causing harm to some of the 5,000 people that I've had the pleasure of working with over the past 5 to 6 years. So first and foremost, the twin flame label can be used to explain or normalize very intense energies. As a matter of fact, usually I think people experience intensity, tremendous intensity with another person, and then they go to Google or they go to someone and they try to explain this intensity, right? And they type in what they experienced, oh my gosh, I felt this lightning bolt, or I felt this intensity with this person, and they discover the twin flame label. Okay, so often it's the intensity itself that leads us to label someone our twin flame. So, although these intense energies can be catalyzed by the experience of meeting a familiar soul and our soul recognizing that other individual, these sorts of intense energies are also very present and noticeable in a variety of different toxic and abusive relationships, including experiences of trauma bonding And this is not a psychology video, and I'm not a psychologist, but there is a phenomenon whereby we can encounter an individual whose abuse of us is similar to perhaps an unknown abuse that we may have experienced early in our life or childhood, whereby when the person speaks to us in a certain way or interacts with us in a certain way, it actually feels like love, because early in our life, growing up in some sort of intense environment, we were treated that way by someone who was meant to be a loving figure in our life. And we may not have recognized that the way that they treated us was not healthy. Later on in our life, we encounter someone who treats us that same way, and we misidentify that as an intense soul love. Now, of course, that's not what's happening in 100% of situations with people who identify as twin flames. But the possibility does exist that someone could actually experience something like a trauma bond or another type of toxic relationship dynamic, feel that intensity and that tremendous longing to merge with that individual, label it a twin flame, and then begin to normalize what actually are cycles of toxicity or abuse playing out. And even in the worst cases, a person could end up being extremely, extremely negatively affected by a toxic relationship, but hanging on due to the fact of having recognized, as a matter of fact, that intensity, but mislabeling it as a twin flame dynamic. Or even appropriately labeling it as a spiritual connection, but still one where the intensity itself isn't actually caused by the connection, but is rather caused by the perpetuation of a cycle of trauma or abuse. Okay, so that's way number one. Number two, the twin flame label, right? Like, one of the best things about it is it really can teach us about unity and oneness with another person. However, taken to the extreme, we can label someone our twin flame and then focus on unity and oneness to the extent that we then begin to personalize that other person's actions and free will choices, believing that that person's actions are actually a reflection of us or something inside of us. So maybe that person, speaks to us in a really unkind way. Maybe they say, "You're ugly and stupid." And in a normal situation, we would think, I am not sure that this person is really for me. But after labeling that person our twin flame and believing that their words and actions reflect us in some way, we can then begin to sort of inadvertently identify with, or even in the worst cases, like take responsibility for the character traits of that other person because we believe that they have some special significance to us. So in that case, right, we might start to think like, you know what, like this twin flame of mine keeps telling me that I'm ugly. And that's because I, somewhere within myself, believe that I'm ugly. Yes? However, it is possible that our belief of being ugly really doesn't actually exist or doesn't exist in the way that we think it does. And we end up taking responsibility and saying, and even if that does exist, right, we end up taking responsibility and saying, it's okay that my twin flame treated me this way, or acted this way, or said this to me, or hurt me in this way, because we're one, and they're simply reflecting me, okay? So I also am very, very, very consciously aware that people in our life can indeed serve as mirrors and show us areas for our growth and evolution. However, the possibility exists of a person labeling another person their twin flame and then making excuses for what actually can be really unhealthy or even in the worst case, abusive behaviors, right? Also, when we focus so much on oneness and being one being, with our twin flame, it could potentially create codependent dynamics. And in the worst cases, this can actually distract an individual from the true healing that they need, because they can actually begin almost like working on themselves as a way to try to heal the way that another person that they've labeled their twin flame is treating them, or in hopes that if I fix this part of myself, which may or may not actually be broken in the first place, if I fix this part of myself someday, it will lead to this person who's currently mistreating me, treating me better, and us being together. Now, as I describe this, hopefully some of you are having like an experience of, having some warning lights, kind of going off in your head, because even if this isn't happening to you, if you've been on the twin flame journey long enough, you probably have seen situations where this is happening to someone, right? Okay, I think I've seen this maybe happening before. Okay, so let's move on to the third way that the twin flame label could potentially be harming you. This is one that's really caused me to need to speak out today, okay? The twin flame label could cause harm because it could cause us to ignore meaningful emotional or physiological responses to red flags that are happening in an unhealthy relationship. So, we could have, for example, a sinking feeling, in our stomach or something like that every time that a certain person comes around us, right? Like our body's trying to say, oh, something's not right. Like when you think of this person, you get tense or you feel unwell or something like that, right? But when understood in a certain way, right, we can ultimately use the twin flame teachings to justify an experience of, say, our emotions or body saying no to a situation, and actually write them off as triggers, and even take responsibility in a codependent way for the way that somebody else is treating us or making us feel, right? In the worst situations. And this only becomes really possible because of the twin flame label, whereas otherwise, people who are highly, highly intelligent and thoughtful, and I find that most people who are drawn to the twin flame community, a lot of these people that I worked with personally, they're like doctors or they're lawyers or they're psychologists, and they're deeply thoughtful people who are extremely intelligent, who otherwise probably would not ignore, certain physiological stress symptoms or emotionally stressful symptoms in their body, for example. But they're sort of justifying these negative feelings or experiences because they're familiar with the concept of triggers. Now, I'm not saying that the concept of triggers is not valuable. It's tremendously valuable. When we have people show up in our lives and, every time a certain person says something to us, or every time, a variety of people start behaving in a certain way around us and it makes us uncomfortable, certainly we should look at that, because it probably is something in us that's making us feel uncomfortable. But the possibility exists of us writing off all of, the possibility exists, in other words, of us writing off a variety of different symptoms, potentially, of toxicity or abuse because we're labeling them triggers. So it's one thing if a person in your life says to you, let's say they, say to you 1,000 things and one thing makes you feel a little uncomfortable, chances are that thing's a trigger. But if that same person is in your life and they say to you 1,000 things and 500 of those things make you feel uncomfortable, well, that could very well be not a trigger, but rather the possibility exists that it could be some form of, say, verbal or emotional or psychological abuse. But due to the twin flame label, you could misunderstand it as a trigger. Okay, this is one of the things that like I said, that's really made me want to speak out today, because I've seen this happening to people, and I know that in some way those people may have, say, watched a video I put out about twin flame triggers or things like that, and they may be in a situation that's actually harming them. Their heart or their body's trying to tell them something's not right, something's not right, something's not right, something's not right. And they're remembering back to the concept of twin flame triggers and saying, oh, no, it's not the other person, it's me. This is just my own trigger. So that does concern me a great deal as I kind of grow and evolve on my own soul journey and mature. That possibility I feel needs to be spoken of. Okay, so that brings me to the fourth way that the twin flame label could be potentially harmful, and this is a related concept. So one common belief or, point of discussion in the twin flame community is the concept of ascension symptoms. Many of you have probably heard of ascension symptoms. And once we label, not even just the other person, but once we label ourself a twin flame, we suddenly open ourselves up to the possibility that we may be experiencing a wide variety of really non-specific symptoms, which we then label ascension symptoms, right? And almost any symptom, almost any emotional, psychological, or physical symptom can then become an ascension symptom. Now, is it possible that as our soul ascends and we raise our vibration, that we may experience changes or even physical symptoms that are understood as ascension symptoms? I believe so. Yes, that possibility exists. But there's also a very strong possibility of an individual, as a result of labeling themselves as a twin flame, writing off very real physical or mental health symptoms as ascension symptoms, which then could result in a worsening of an underlying real health condition, whether that be a mental or physical health condition that perhaps could be easily addressed if not written off as an ascension symptom. It's also even further, and this disturbs me even further, the possibility exists that the symptoms themselves, which may be attributed to the ascension process of the twin flame journey, could in fact be related to the twin flame journey, but not in the way that that person thinks. So it's possible that that person, for example, could be experiencing a tremendous variety of physiological responses to, say, for example, complex post-traumatic stress disorder or something like that. And again, I'm not a psychologist. I'm just stating that sometimes our body and mind can respond very strongly to a prolonged stress. And the possibility exists that the twin flame journey is actually the source of that stress. So a very intelligent person could say, I feel a connection between this person I've labeled my twin flame and this insomnia, this headache, this digestive distress that I'm experiencing, or various other sort of symptomologies, right? And they could be correct. Indeed, they are experiencing those physical or emotional symptoms, and they are indeed related to that person that they've labeled as the twin flame. However, the possibility exists that that person could then write off what they're experiencing as ascension symptoms, when in reality, what they are experiencing is a very important mental, emotional, physiological response to a very, very traumatic and stressful life situation, which they are labeling a twin flame journey, which could, in actual fact, also be a journey of abuse or toxicity in a relationship or neglect, etc. Okay, so this very much concerns me. I think the possibility, if we're honest with ourselves, there is a strong possibility of writing off, very real and concerning things that we're experiencing in the material world as either triggers or ascension symptoms. this is something that I've seen happening before and that I've reflected on a great deal. One of my own personal learnings, like over, really in 2020, has been the reality that stress can manifest in our bodies and minds in very real and tangible ways. And that's caused me, as I've also reflected on the twin flame journey, to begin to see that link a lot more clearly than I initially had. And I would hate for somebody to be experiencing complex post-traumatic stress disorder or other, stress-induced, say, fibromyalgia or other things, and be, instead of seeking help from a practitioner or, say, for example, distancing themselves from the source of the stress, instead be writing it off as an ascension symptom and actually moving closer to that which is causing the stress in the first place. Okay, so again, of course, that's not happening in every situation, but the potential does exist, and I feel it important to bring, some awareness around that potential. So that brings us to number 5. This one weighs on me a lot. I've stayed up at night thinking about this and specific people who I know are affected by this 5th potential for harm. And it really has pushed me to speak out today. So what is number 5? Number 5 is that, once we label someone our twin flame, we can then become hyper-focused on that individual at the detriment of some of or all of our other relationships in our life. In the worst cases, this can result in a person completely fixating on that individual whom they've labeled as their twin flame, even though that person whom they've labeled as their twin flame does not love or care about them whatsoever. This is basically unrequited love, and it's horrible to experience this. And if you're experiencing this and you've been kind of trying to not see it, I just invite you in this moment to wrap yourself up in a big hug, and it's okay. We all will experience, most likely somehow in some way during our life journey, the experience of unrequited love. Okay, but what's problematic is if somebody's just having that experience of unrequited or unreciprocated love and they've labeled that person their twin flame, they're going to keep working, keep healing, keep connecting with that person. And that in and of itself is absolutely devastating, because if it's unrequited love, no matter how much you purify your own being, that other person will never love you. But it can get even worse than that, because I've seen this happen many times, and in the worst cases, that soul who believes they're having the twin flame journey or has labeled that other person their twin flame then can actually reject a variety of healthy relationships. Maybe they have, for example, a lovely soulmate come into their life or something like that and, want to be with them, but they'll say no because they're waiting for that person they've labeled their twin flame who never, ever will ever come together with them in relationship, or who does not love them. And this happens a lot. I would say this is just a ballpark estimate, but based on my work in the twin flame community, I would say at least 1 out of every 3 people who believes that they're having a twin flame experience is actually experiencing some form of unrequited love. And a lot of these people will refuse to date and will also distance themselves in many ways from friends, family, etc., who do want to love them in some way because of the fixation on the person that they've labeled to be their twin flame. And they're like, I'll wait forever. In some cases, I've seen people who have been waiting. It's very common to see people who have been waiting between 5 and 10 years. In some cases, I've seen usually women, but it could be anyone who's waited as much as 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, and done really sincere healing on themselves during this entire time and is really just holding out for a relationship that never will happen because they've labeled that person their twin flame. And I feel horrible about the extent to which any of these people have been affected by my past videos where I've stated that I believe that all twin flames are meant to come together. And I am able to remember a lot of wonderful things about the process of incarnation and what it's like in the higher realms. And I know that we make soul contracts with souls with whom we share a very special connection, and that those soul contracts do play out, and we do come together, and it's beautiful, or at least the universe will do everything to support us coming together. And that knowingness was really the basis of my teaching that twin flames are meant to come together. However, I've realized, like, as time goes on, that certain people took that message and it's actually caused them harm. It's actually caused them to hold on to connections that are harmful to them because they labeled them twin flames. And very, very sadly, that person whom all signs, like, without the twin flame label, if they were just to look at what's taking place, they would realize that that person doesn't love them and is never going to show up for them. Because, for example, maybe that person tells them to go away every time they talk to them, or they're simply ignored by that person, or that other person has clearly expressed to them, I never want to be with you. However, their own belief in the twin flame journey has overrode their logic, and they actually are holding on to the very small possibility that that other person might someday be with them, and therefore they're missing out on true, genuine, healthy, soul-based partnerships with real people who are really there with them in their material life right now. And in cases like this, often what that person needs the most to heal is not more work in the fifth dimension or more metaphysical understandings or more twin flame retreats or more readings. What they actually need to heal is a grounded, mutually supported, healthy relationship. And that relationship will never happen with the person that they've labeled to be their twin flame. And this, you guys, literally, like, this has kept me up a number of nights throughout, like, the past several months, this knowingness that some of my teachings may have been contributing to people holding on to an individual who's never going to show up for them. And that's why I felt that I needed to at least speak to this possibility. And although it's not happening in the majority of cases, it is happening, you know, and as a result, I felt I needed to speak of it today because I do not want to see anyone hurt by the twin flame label. It absolutely breaks my heart when I see people hurting so bad and justifying that hurt based on twin flame principles, concepts, teachings, or labels. I want you all to know that I absolutely believe in the healing power of unconditional love and true soul connections. And I know with every fiber of my being the power of that love. However, I also understand that for love to be beneficial, it really does have to be shared in the context of a balanced partnership where both parties are giving and receiving in equal measure. And I want to make sure that everything that I put out into the world is really helping people to build and nurture and strengthen these types of healthy and balanced partnerships where both parties are giving and receiving love in equal measure. You know, this is very, 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 very important to me. And although every soul's journey is unique, I think for some people, right, like the twin flame journey is a step along the way. This twin flame journey, it teaches us so much about, self-love and compassion and understanding and oneness and all those wonderful things we talked about at the beginning. And the twin flame journey is like this amazing spiritual deep dive and initiation. And I believe that, it really is incredibly worthwhile to a lot of people, myself included. With that said, there does exist the potential to be negatively impacted by twin flame ideology or teaching. So in closing today, I just want to invite those of you who are still here listening, thank you so much, to ask yourself a few questions. The first question is, have I held on to a person that I've labeled my twin flame, even though this person repeatedly causes me great pain and or disappointment? Have I held on to a person whom I've labeled my twin flame, even though this person repeatedly causes me great pain and disappointment? Okay, question 2. Do I know the signs and cycles of toxic relationships, and am I experiencing any of them now? Question 2, do I personally know, have I studied the signs and cycles of toxic relationships, and might I be experiencing any of those signs or cycles now? And the final question is, have the twin flame teachings served their purpose in my life? Have I grown as much as I can as a result of the twin flame concept? Am I ready to explore another spiritual pathway? Okay, so to repeat that question, it's really 3 questions, all related. Have the twin flame teachings served their purpose in my life? Have I grown as much as I can as a result of the twin flame concept? Am I ready to explore another spiritual pathway? In my experience, based on my observations, I have found that most people will reach a point where they really understand the twin flame teachings and concepts and ideology, and they've implemented them very well, and they've healed and they've grown, and they become stagnant, where they keep trying. It's like they're trying to implement those teachings or principles, and they're fundamentally actually not growing anymore as a soul because they've gone as far as they can with those principles. So I think it's worthwhile at least to ask ourselves, whether we might be at that place where it's like, wow, this journey's offered me so much. Oh my gosh, like I'm so grateful. Thank you, universe. Thank you, spirit. Thank you to this twin flame. Thank you. And I've grown as much as I can, and I'm ready to grow more by engaging perhaps with a different or complementary spiritual pathway. Okay, so maybe you identify with some of those questions, maybe you don't. My intention behind this video today was just to create a dialogue that balances the extremely positive and optimistic dialogue around twin flames that I've put out into the world so far. I wanted to offer a balance to that so that we can all think, and my intention behind doing so is really the same intention that I've always had, which is to help expand the number of true, genuine, healthy, soul-to-soul partnerships on this planet at this time, because I do know and believe in the healing power of unconditional love. And the thought that in any way, at any point, my teachings on the twin flame concept could have actually detracted from the creation of spiritually bonded, healthy relationships, it really does break my heart. So I'm hoping that now and in the future, I can put out to the world teachings that may help people who perhaps, and again, it's not everyone, but perhaps people who have been negatively impacted by the twin flame label, because I do see the potential whereby some of my work may have contributed to the negative results that have occurred for some people. And I do think it is my personal responsibility to help mitigate those negative effects. And I want every single one of you who are listening today to end up in a very healthy and balanced partnership, which really does nurture your soul. So with that said, most of you have realized this already, but just to state it formally, I am no longer offering any twin flame readings or services. I haven't been for a long time. I actually have not had any twin flame readings or anything on my website for probably 2 or 3 years now. So with all due respect, please don't come to me asking for a twin flame reading or twin flame coaching. If you want to come to me and ask me, hey, Maya, can you help me establish a very healthy and balanced, soulful partnership? I will absolutely say yes. And that's what I do most days. And I'd be happy to help you in that regard. But going forward, I will not be using the twin flame label. Now that I am aware of the potential for that label to create harmful effects in people's lives. And yes, I'm absolutely happy to help you if you feel drawn to my frequency or things like that. You know, I still provide readings, and I just won't be using the twin flame label anymore. So anyway, if you happen to be there and you're still listening and you listen to this whole video, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being open to these understandings. Please be kind in the comments below. And I understand that many people may only resonate with, say, a small portion of the video, but I just hope whatever you needed to hear and whatever message that you needed, that you got it from today's video. And I hope we can all be kind and respectful and really approach the twin flame concept with a balanced perspective, being aware of the potential for a great deal of good that can come from the label, but also being aware of the potential harm that can be caused as well. And really that awareness of the duality of life on earth is a part of our soul's growth, understanding, and evolution, and a part of the reason, really, I think, why all of us chose to come here in the first place. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. I really do love you guys, and that's why, even though it's been uncomfortable to do so, that's why I made today's video. So sending you all so much love. Thank you for being here. If you enjoyed the video and you'd like to hear more about this topic, please let me know. And please consider coming back for more videos in the future. Thank you again to all of you. Many blessings and namaste.